welcome back, guys. So over the last week and a bit, almost 2 weeks, I've been trying to take the time and figure out what I wanted to do for my first official video on here. And I figured the best way to start off the channel would be going right back to the beginning and explaining how I found out I was pregnant. And by the title of this video, you will see that it was a pretty shocking pregnancy discovery. It is not clickbait at all. I was 4.5 months pregnant when I found out. And I clearly was one of those women that would have ended up thinking I had a stomach bug or something and going to the bathroom and giving birth or something. So, yeah. So just as a bit of a background story to leading up to finding out I was pregnant, for a year before, I had been having some hormonal issues. This had resulted in me basically not ovulating, and now I think it was probably because I had been on birth control, and for this year I had not been on birth control, and I think it was my body resetting hormonally. But for that year leading up, I had been taking numerous pregnancy tests throughout the year that were all negative. Now, this led me to believe that because I wasn't getting my period and pregnancy tests were all negative, that there was something seriously wrong with my body. I thought, honestly, in my head, I thought I was going through premature menopause or something like that. So just as a word of advice to anyone watching this, if you have something going on in your body and you're not sure what's going on, go and see a doctor. Go and get checked out. It's not usually as bad as you're making it out in your head to be. And if it is, you still want a doctor to be the one that's providing that care to you. So do that. Anyway. The first clue that I had that I was actually pregnant, I was in university at the time. I was 20 years old, and I was sat in a evening finance class and sitting there listening to the professor talk, and I felt like a ping go off in my uterus, and I had never felt anything like that before, and I think that there was some sort of instinct that kicked in, and I thought, oh crap, I might be pregnant. I took about 3 days to think it over and had started to convince myself that I was being totally irrational. You know, you've had all these hormone issues for the last year. There's no way. It's fine. But what I decided to do was to get some pregnancy tests and take them on the following Monday. So I actually took them at my university. I knew that the bathrooms there were always super quiet, and that I would just take the test and then I would go on with my regular day. So I took the test, and I am not kidding when I say that as soon as I peed on it, it was a positive pregnancy test. I know that in the earlier stages you have to wait for 3 minutes, but rest assured, if you're further along than that, it does not take 3 minutes to give you the results back. It was very obvious that it was a positive pregnancy test. So I did not go to my classes for the rest of the day. I drove home, and my mom came home a little bit after that, and we ended up going to the doctor's. He then did another pregnancy test in the doctor's office, which was again positive. And then he did a pelvic exam. No, not a pelvic exam. Just an exam on my stomach. And what they can do is kind of date the pregnancy by measuring the top of the uterus from the pubic bone. And it's something about the inches or centimeters or something, and it can kind of give an estimate of how many weeks along you are. So he did this measurement, and the top of my uterus was just underneath my belly button. So from his calculations, he estimated that I would be around 5 months pregnant. And so, as you can imagine, this was terrifying. It was, I mean, I didn't even know how far along I could be. I think I could have been up to like 7 months pregnant at that time, just going by my cycle dates and stuff. So I guess it could have ended up even scarier, but 5 months was still pretty terrifying to hear. So he then scheduled us in for an emergency ultrasound the next day, and that was to just confirm the dates and everything. So we went and did that. And that was when I was given the 4.5 months. So that was, I think it was 18 weeks and a day when I had the ultrasound done. And the ultrasound was really scary. Obviously, expectant parents at their first ultrasound usually see an image of basically cells developing, and that was just so not the case with us. They turned that screen around and it was a baby. You could see face, hands, feet, everything. She was just very small, but she was a baby. No cellular development at this stage. So yeah, it was pretty terrifying. Just to give a little bit more information, I wasn't really having pregnancy symptoms. So I didn't have nausea or morning sickness or anything like that. I mean, once I found out I was pregnant, it was quite obvious that I'd been having symptoms that I hadn't quite associated with pregnancy symptoms. So I'd been having leg cramps through the night, and they were awful, to the point where I would pull muscles and wouldn't be able to walk properly the next day. What else was I having? I know I needed to like pee when I woke up in the morning, and I'd be desperate, but it wasn't any more frequent than normal, so that didn't really trigger anything either. I hadn't gained weight at this point. And so all of these things just, I don't know, in my naive brain, I was looking for those stereotypical pregnancy symptoms that you see in movies and stuff, and that's like throwing up. And I wasn't having that, so I wasn't pregnant, right? That's the way it works. After I did find out I was pregnant, it was like I was hit with every symptom that I could possibly have. My belly also popped pretty much the next day. You could then see it. It's like all the muscles realized they were pregnant and just let it go. I don't know. Yeah, so here I was now finding out I was already halfway through my pregnancy, and we had so much to decide and organize and plan and, you know, get all our ducks in the row for her coming. And we only had 4.5 months to do it. And we also had the added stuff of, you know, being young and in university and still living at home with our parents. And I was also in Canada on a student visa. So there was a gray area there with legalities. I was seen as a dependent on my parents coming into the country. And we didn't know if that kind of threw a wrench in my eligibility to be in Canada. At the time, my boyfriend and we were in a really good relationship. Honestly, we'd only been together for about 2 years at this point, but I was crazy about him. I had actually decided to stay in Canada. Once I had met him, I had planned on moving back to Scotland until I met him, and that was kind of thrown out the window. So, yeah, we had been fighting a little bit more than usual the months leading up to finding out we were pregnant, and I do realize now that that was the pregnancy hormones. It wasn't me. It was the hormones, for sure. I was a raging. It was the hormones, not me. Yeah, so we were kind of left in this really scary situation. From that point, we obviously started our maternity clinic visits. And the amount of shame I felt going there was unreal. You know, I hadn't, just not knowing I was pregnant, I hadn't been doing the things that an expectant mother would normally do. I hadn't been really taking very special care of myself. I hadn't been eating right. I hadn't been taking prenatal vitamins. It was just, you know, I was living a life of a 20-year-old. So going to those visits was really hard, and I felt like I had to do everything in my power to make up for it. And I made up for a lot. I ate a lot of food, and I put on way more weight than I should have in the last 4.5 months. I definitely made up for lost time there. But yeah, I mean, it was really hard, and I don't know who's going to end up watching this video, but if there's someone out there watching it that's young or been through another situation, it definitely gets easier. I still do feel embarrassed sometimes to be around other parents. They're a lot older than me. And that's actually one reason I'm really excited to turn 30 this year, because I feel like it might give me a little bit of confidence to feel like I'm older, I'm part of this now. It is hard though, being a young mom, and feeling judged, even though I don't think anyone's really judging you. I think it's internal. At least it was with me. So another fear that we had, caused by not knowing that I was pregnant and stuff, we were worried that because I hadn't been taking care of myself, that the baby may have been impacted, or there may be something wrong with her. So every time we had an ultrasound, we were terrified that we were going to get the news that, you know, something had gone wrong with the pregnancy. That didn't end up being the case. She was perfect. We did end up having a lot more ultrasounds than is kind of regular for a healthy, normal pregnancy. And that was just because she was breech from the second trimester. So every single ultrasound that we had seen in her, she was in the exact same position every time. Basically, her head was up underneath my left rib. Her butt was down in my pelvic area, and then her feet were out to the right-hand side of my body. And she stayed there. She stayed there right until the end of the pregnancy, and we did end up having a C-section because of this, because I think that's, someone might be able to correct me or inform me, but I think that's oblique breech, which is, there's just no way that you can naturally give birth to a baby in that position. So we did end up having a C-section. And you know what? That was really hard as well. As a young mom, you know, I still have body issues from that, because I don't think that your body really handles it as well as it can in natural birth. You know, the muscles, I just don't think react well to it. But anyway, yeah, so this was a really, really scary situation, and I want to be totally honest, because this is the whole point of this channel. I'm a super happy person usually, and I try to just fight my way through every situation now and try and see the silver lining. But you know what? It's been tough. It's been a tough ride. It's tough to get pregnant. It's tough to not know that you're halfway through a pregnancy and have all that pressure thrown on you at such a young age and in such a short amount of time. But what it has taught me is that I can pretty much take on any situation if I really set my mind to it. I mean, when I found out I was pregnant, I was going to fight for that as much as I could. It was, mama instincts fully came out, and I was going to do, and I was willing to do anything it took to make this work and to bring her into a good, happy life. And also, I kind of view it as, at the time, this was like the scariest and hardest thing I'd ever been through. And at the end of it, it came the most fulfilling and the most rewarding and the best thing that I've ever done or produced. You know, I can never replicate that. And it kind of helps me deal with any situation that I go through that is hard or testing, because I know that if I just fight through, then there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And I know that sounds really cheesy, but trust me, this going through a situation like that, it changes you. It fundamentally changes who you are as a person. She is the best thing that has ever happened to me. Yeah, so I really debated doing this as a first video because it seems so heavy, but I think that it really sets the scene for who I am, how I became a mother in the first place, and it kind of explains a little bit of why I chose the name Mama Stay Calm as well. I mean, one, it's super ironic because I'm allergic to yoga and exercise in general, but also because I kind of feel like that's my motto, like, just stay calm and live through it, I guess. Yeah, so like I said, I don't know who will end up watching this video. My hope is that this might be able to help out any other young mums or dads as well in a similar situation, if I can provide help whatsoever to someone, because there wasn't really any resources for me at that time other than my boyfriend at the time and my family. But obviously I didn't know anyone that was or had been through a similar situation, and I think it probably would have been pretty cool to connect with people who knew what I was going through and had empathy for that situation as well. I do want to try and make some more fun, lighthearted videos after this one. Now that you kind of know a little bit more about me and how I became a mom, now I just want to have fun, I guess, and do some more funny videos. So, stay tuned, I guess, and we'll see you soon. Bye. And do you know what's really awesome about being me right now? So I'm turning 30 this year, which means I'm starting to get wrinkles. But you know what? My body hasn't figured that out yet. So I'm still getting pimples as well. Like, that's awesome. I get both. I get the best of both worlds, right? Old wrinkly face, young prepubescent pimply face. Yeah. Thanks.